Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Smith. I'm Group Managing Director of People2People in Australia and Frog Recruitment in New Zealand. It's Friday afternoon at 12:30, which means we're live here on Facebook and YouTube for our market employment and jobs market update. We've been doing this now for about a month or so, and we're getting great feedback. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you a whole bunch of information today. So it's a short week. We've had a public holiday this week. You can see that I'm much more corporate than I was on Friday as I was heading away, and I really enjoyed the weekend. But there seems to be lots happening in the market out there at the moment. The stock market today, I think, is up and down like a yo-yo. So let me share with you today what's going to happen in terms of the employment market. So what am I going to do today? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the market conditions out there across Australia. We'll go through our regular numbers section where I'll update you on the latest stats released in, this last week on jobs. We'll also join Kelly Shahadi from Melbourne for an update on the Melbourne business support market. We'll be joining Kim Padmore from our Perth office because she's got a fabulous couple of opportunities I think she's going to talk to us about. And our job hunting tip this week comes from Aidan Boast, who's on our temporary desk here in Sydney, and he's going to focus specifically on some tips for those seeking temporary work at the moment. Finally, I'll give you the dates of any upcoming events. If you have any questions during today's broadcast, please pop them in the comments below. We can see them. We'll see if we can get to those during the broadcast as well. So don't be afraid to engage with us. So now let's get into it with my market wrap for the last week. So once again, with the short week, we do appear to be bumping along the bottom of the market. I've got some numbers to show you when the actual bottom of the market was, which I think was the second week of April. So we'll see that in a moment. But look, there is a few glimmers out there. So there's been quite a bit of movement on our temp desks in Queensland this week, mainly in finance and mainly in short-term roles. What's been interesting about our experience in trying to fill those roles in Queensland is the fact that they are very short-term positions. So anything as short as 2 to 3 weeks. I think we had one contract at 3 months. And anecdotally, we've been having some feedback that people are indecisive about taking on these short-term temporary roles, either because of the financial impact of actually receiving JobSeeker, but also the health impacts. Oh, well, I'm okay. I'm still a little bit concerned. I'm going to stay at home. Or myself and my partner's working. I'm getting JobSeeker. We're okay for now. I'd prefer to balance out my health and that risk with not taking on that temporary assignment. So I've got a bit of a poll that I'm running today on Twitter, which I'll share with you at the end of the broadcast, which I'm really keen to hear your feedback on that. But stay tuned and I'll tell you details about that. There's also quite a lot of talk around the market at the moment about relocations and reallocation of workers. So that shifting of the demand. So we need people in another part of our business. Now, there was a lot of that at the beginning of the crisis. We saw it overtly with maybe air hostesses going to work for Woolworths and that type of deal that was going on. What we're starting to see in the marketplace now is that individual businesses are starting to shift resources internally. So people who may have been in a different role are now shifting maybe into customer service, etc. So that reallocation of resources certainly happening. And also, in a good sign, some people that were stood down and on JobKeeper are now returning back, maybe not full-time, but returning back to some duties into the businesses that they were stood down from. So there is a little bit of movement out there. I also wanted to share with you, it's quite interesting just from a legal perspective, that an employer is being sued at the moment, which I thought was very interesting, and I'd share with you. And if you could seek it out in the media and online, I'd encourage you to read about this particular case where an employer is being sued for cutting a particular employee's salary from $200,000 a year to the JobKeeper 40K amount during this COVID crisis. I think it's Morris Blackburn who have launched the landmark federal court case, and that'll be really a test of the employer's powers under the JobKeeper rules, and particularly when they're reducing those amounts down whilst the employee still remains busy. I actually have here, I think, and this is from Hannah Wotton's article in the AFR, so I'll make sure I put that in the comments so you can have a look at that. But I just wanted to read, this is what Josh Bornstein from Morris Blackburn actually said. He said, in this case, the federal court will be asked to adjudicate on the requirements that an employer must meet to qualify for JobKeeper and whether lawful directions were given to employees. It really is a bit of a test case. I know in the recruitment industry that there was a particular consultant who had been taken down to JobKeeper, and that there was a Fair Work ruling last Friday to say that the employer had not done anything wrong, and that they were fully in the right in undertaking that particular action. Lots going to happen, I think, on that over the next few weeks and months for sure. So that's it for my market update. Now let's move on to our regular numbers section. Right, so the numbers this week that I'm going to share with you, and this is really to demonstrate the job ads again and to really show you where the bottom of the market was and the gradual incline that we're experiencing now. So Jaden, if you could just pop up that first graph for me. So you can see here, this is thanks to a tweet actually from Indeed, and I thought that's great. I'll share that with everybody. So this is job postings on Indeed in Australia, 7-day rolling average, where the index is 100 is February. Now normally you should note that February is quite a quiet month, so it normally would rise pretty rapidly out of that. But so February at 100, and you can see that we really did drop dramatically in March. And then the bottom of the market was in April, and we're on that steady incline up and out since the middle of April there. So the next one graph, Jaden, if you could show that one, is probably a better representation because this is new jobs advertised only. So when it demonstrates that really where the bottom of the market was, it was that just after Easter. So we had Easter, and it was that week after Easter, that was the bottom, and we've been in a steady incline after that. I fully expect, because Indeed produced these numbers pretty weekly, that we'll see a little bit of a dip this last week because of the public holiday. But generally, it's good news that there is a steady incline from the bottom of the market. Now, the other stats that I wanted to show with you today are a little bit not from a COVID crisis, but really I wanted to share with you the gender pay gap, because a couple of weeks ago I showed you that the women in the marketplace were being affected more than men in terms of the COVID crisis. But I also thought that got me thinking about sharing the gender pay gap. So Jaden, if you wanted to pop up the first graphic we have here, and you can see that there has been an improvement since November 2014, where we peaked at 18.5%. Think about that, everybody. 18.5% gender pay gap between men and women in Australia. And we're not talking about the mid-60s here, last century. We're talking about 2014. We've still had a steady, so since that point we're at a low point, but it's still at 14% is the gender pay gap. And the next slide, Jaden, will tell you in which state that pay gap is greatest. So you can see I've got for Western Australia, 22% in November 2019. I know the numbers are a little bit old, but 22% in November 2018. Look at these numbers. The low point, Victoria and Tasmania at 9.6 and 9, ACT 8.9, so around that 9 mark. And you can see the high point is WA. I'll be asking, I should put Kim on the spot and say, Kim from our Perth office later today, is that really what it's like in WA? But WA and Queensland are certainly where the biggest pay gap exists. Very interesting about that. I thought I'd share that with you. So that's it on, one last thing on the numbers, and it really isn't a graph. I just wanted to share with you because it popped up on my feed today, that US on a year-on-year basis, IT jobs, which has been the sector that's been holding up the most in Australia and in the US, were down 2.5%. So on a year-on-year basis, IT jobs were down 2.5% in the US, and that's better than the 11.7% decline for the total workforce. So certainly IT is a sector that's holding up as well. Rightio, I think it's now time for us to go for a spotlight on market. And this week we're going to be talking about business support with Kelly in our Melbourne office. So now let's have a quick chat to Kelly.
Hi Mark, happy Friday.
G'day Kelly, how are you?
Good, thank you. So yeah, just a little bit around the Melbourne market. So we are being kept busy in the customer service space at the moment. We have experienced an increase in temporary to permanent requests from our clients, which we find is a great way to get a fit from both the candidates and clients' perspective, but also a viable option throughout times of economic uncertainty. We've noticed in the administration support space, this has significantly decreased. We've seen some traditional one-on-one support roles morph into more team assistant roles, so supporting a wider range. And we've also noticed, like you touched on before, a number of our clients redeploying staff into administration support roles, which further accounts for this lack of demand. I do anticipate this space picking up again once people in Victoria are back in the offices. So, for example, roles such as client services, reception, concierge will exist again once this space picks up.
Yeah, do you think any ideas on when do you reckon you'd be back into the offices?
We're finding out some further announcements at the end of the month. So I think it'll be dependent on those. But yeah, I know we're all very keen to get back in the offices, but just got to wait for the right government advice.
Yeah, exactly. So, and is there any particular industries that have greater demand, Kelly?
We have seen in our offices greater demand in renewable energy and utilities, as well as the financial services, certain areas of that sector.
Okay, that's interesting for fin services for sure. I know. I don't know if you saw the other night. There was there's a lot of day traders out there at the moment as well. So, and with the stock market that's happening today, it doesn't surprise me that there's
huge increase.
Yeah, when there's volatility in the market, therefore there's people in fin services do have a chance to make some money for sure. Have you been surprised at all about how the market's behaving at the moment?
Yeah, so the only real surprise for me, I think, is the rate in which the vacancies are picking up again. So it has been better than we anticipated, and we have experienced from that first big drop. When it first started, we have experienced week-on-week growth. So yeah, it's happening a little bit faster than we thought. And like I said, when people are back in the offices again, that will really help.
Yeah. Well, you can certainly see in the graphs that I had from Indeed there that the bottom of the market was definitely in mid-April, and it has been a steady incline, and that's been. Yeah. You would say that's certainly our experience in Melbourne, then, yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Good. All right. So if anybody has any questions then for Kelly, then please feel free to pop them in the comments below, and we can answer those live for you. We do have one here from David. What impact do you think the extra protest COVID cases will have on getting back to the Victorian office?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not a health expert. We do just, as far as I'm aware, know of that one case. So again, it's just about waiting on that government advice and following the right precautions to get back to the office safely.
Do you think there's a pent-up demand for people to return to the office? Like, do you think people are waiting? Like there is a demand?
Certainly, from a candidate perspective, it's mixed. Some are very comfortable working from home, others prefer that environment. From a client perspective, in talent acquisition, different people I've spoken to, they would prefer to onboard face-to-face. Although it can be streamlined really well virtually, it is usually their preference.
Okay, cool. Now, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Kelly, in Melbourne, how do you go about doing that?
Of course. So pick up the phone and you can give me a call on 039098 7435. Otherwise, my email is kelly.shahade, CHEHADE, @people2people.com.au.
And I know you're all over social, so LinkedIn, Twitter, you'll be able to find Kelly as well.
Definitely. I'm sure you'll be able to look me up. Love to hear from you.
Excellent. Rightio. Well, thanks, Kelly. Thanks very, very much for that. So now let's move on to our next section, which is the job or opportunity of the week with Kim Padmore in our Perth office.
Hi, Mark.
So apparently women in WA, there's a big pay gap. Did you see that?
Huge. We've certainly got a long way to go here in WA. I think that's largely to do with the fact that WA is largely driven by our mining and resources sector, and the salaries are just disproportionately higher than other industries here. And I know from working in that sector here in Perth prior to recruitment that a lot of those executive positions are filled with men instead of women. So I think that's the reason behind such a huge difference.
Wow. Okay, but we're not here to talk about that. Let's talk about the two opportunities that you've got that you wanted to mention for us today.
Yeah, so I have a corporate receptionist position with a national law firm based in the heart of the CBD here in Perth on St George's Terrace. It's a very mixed role, so it's your traditional responsibilities on reception, as well as getting involved in legal assistant work as well and being trained up on that if the candidate wasn't familiar. They're a very well-established law firm and they're growing rapidly, so they've actually just expanded their current space and are moving into a brand new office, hence the reason for this position being vacant. We've been lucky enough to place a number of support staff with this particular firm, and the feedback has always been absolutely glowing about the culture and the environment there. Salary for this is between 55 to 65 package inclusive of super, depending on experience. The other role that I have is actually one from our Brisbane office. So Rachel Bates in Brisbane just reached out to me about a position they're recruiting for. So it's an accountant role for a resources business based in Brisbane CBD for the head office of the company. It's a role where you're not going to get pigeonholed. So it's mixed responsibilities, technical and commercial focus. There's an opportunity to be mentored by the CFO and finance manager across the full finance function. And the role is being recruited with progression planning in place. So this particular client would be suitable for first movers from tax audit in mid-tier or top four that have completed or nearly completed their CA or CPA. So those candidates are strongly encouraged to apply, and salary for that is up to 90K inclusive of superannuation.
Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, Rachel getting in, and we're doing a little bit of talking behind the scenes before we go live on Facebook. That's fabulous.
Excellent.
So, if somebody wanted to apply, we'll make sure that we will put into the comments links to these two particular roles. But if somebody wanted to talk to you directly, Kim, to find out more, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way is to just give me a call on 0861606201. But you can also send me an email at kim@people2people.com.au.
Fabulous, fantastic. Rightio. If you have any questions, again, pop them in the comments, and we can answer those. But thank you, Kim, for those opportunities, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. So now let's move on to Aidan Boast, who's based in our Sydney temporary team, and he's got a job seeker, a job huntsman. One day the marketing team will give me a picture of a huntsman spider on there, Aidan, I'm sure. But you've got a couple of job hunting tips for somebody looking for temporary work specifically. So what advice have you got?
Yeah. So a couple of bits of advice. So first of all, don't be disheartened when you're looking for a job and you get rejected. It is a job in itself to find a position. So make sure that you're well organized. You've got yourself into a routine when you are searching. Make sure that you're ready to start a role the next day, especially in the temp world. So businesses are making very quick decisions and they're moving really fast within the temporary world at the moment. So what you may experience from this is that you get a video call spot before you start the position. So make sure that you do have everything set up and ready and prepared. It can be quite overwhelming if you do get that call on the spot, but Other things like making sure you have a good connection with your Wi-Fi, have a neutral background and no crazy backgrounds or any disturbances or interruptions as well going on, just so you can engage with that person and really start off on a good foot.
Excellent. Good. All right. So while I've got you, there's some great tips, by the way, because I mean, in my experience, normally in a downturn, it is the temporary market that does seem to come back first. And I would encourage anybody who is watching it today, watching the broadcast today, who maybe had not considered doing temporary work, that it is definitely a way to get back into the market. And in my experience in the past, there's a lot more temporary to permanent opportunities that Kelly was saying as well. So while I got you then, Aidan, how would you describe the market in Sydney, for temps?
Yeah, it's been slow and steady. A lot more businesses are having that positivity at the moment. So they're starting to talk about re-engaging, getting back into the office and then setting out a recruitment plan. I anticipate there may be a little bit of a spike with new budgets coming in with the new financial year in July. But yeah, it's at the moment steady.
Yeah, I'd say it's steady at the bottom. Oh, no, it sounds terrible, but steady at the bottom of the market there, isn't it? Great, fantastic. Thanks, Aidan. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
And with that tip,
Nice.
if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? Oops, we lost Aidan there.
You can call me on 02. You can call me on 02 8270 9705. Or you can email me at aidan@people2people.com.au.
Fabulous, fantastic. Thanks, Aidan. Rightio. Well, that brings us. Well, we're getting close to the end now. So we're spot on time again, just over 22 minutes, which is brilliant. So in terms of upcoming events, before I talk about upcoming events, I really wanted to talk to everybody about the poll that I'm running on Twitter today, and I'll share the results. Next week. The poll will be running for a full week. And it's mainly because of these anecdotes that we've been receiving or hearing from our consultants, particularly filling temporary work, where some candidates are reluctant to actually take on a role because it's short term. And I was wondering whether the difference between the increase in the job seeker amount and the amount that you get, say, at level 1 in the private clerks award, whether that disparity causes an indecision or saying, well, no, I'll just wait. I won't take on a temporary role, but I'll consider permanent opportunities. So the poll that I've got, and I'll put a link to this tweet in the comments as well, is, and it's headed up a very COVID crisis question, but it says, you are receiving the job seeker $1,162 a fortnight. Would you accept a 3-month temp job if it was paying $1,724 in the hand working full time? Because that's what you'd get if you were level 1 on the private clerks award. That's how much you get in the hand if you worked a 38-hour week for 2 weeks. So would you take that? And currently, so far, the results are 83% have said yes, but 16% said no. Really keen to know what your feedback or what your vote would be on that. So please vote in that as well. For those not on Twitter, could you run the poll on LinkedIn as well? Yeah, that's a good question. We can certainly do that. I'll make sure I do that as well. We can combine those numbers and I'll share with everybody next Friday. But once again, join us next week. We don't have any webinars next week, but we certainly have Facebook Live next week, 12:30 next Friday afternoon, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So thank you to Kelly in Melbourne for joining us. Thank you also Aidan in Sydney and Kim in Perth for joining us today. Thanks for your insights, and we'll see everybody else again next week. Thanks for joining us.